What we're going to talk about is how we're going to realize value from generative AI. And I'm with Dell Technology Services. I'm Yannis Kalfoglou, and I'm an AI strategist. So you probably all heard and know about generative AI because you can't quite escape. It has really burst into public consciousness in 2023. Whether you liked it or not, you heard about it, you got excited, which is good, but things need to be a little bit more strategized. Hence, that's what I do. So if you use a metaphor, if this technology promises to deliver what it's meant to deliver, which eventually it will, is a technology of transformation and change. And in such an era of change, you want to be a leader. Now, if you're looking at this kind of a digital metaphor there of a mountain peak, you can't go to the top if you don't have the right tools to solve complex problems you will face along the way. So I will start by positioning a little bit generative AI, or if you allow me, I could call it Gen AI because that's another jargon, and AI because that's very interesting to understand the differences there. Then talk a little bit about what's happening with regards to market feedback, what we're listening, what we're seeing. And then we'll go into the beef of the talk, so to speak, which is how we can help you accelerate your generative AI journey and also expand on Dell's proposition of bringing AI to your data. And then a bit of an history why Dell for Gen AI. Generative AI is based on AI. AI is not new. In fact, I can't quite see here, it's not too good to say, but I think none of us is more older than AI, right? AI is way almost 70 years old and counting. It started in the 50s, and it really started as a combination or amalgamation, if you like, of technology, sciences, engineering, try to do computers do things that typically humans do by mimicking what they do, therefore exhibiting reasoning capabilities in terms of learning, analyzing, and predicting. So that's the general kind of overview of artificial intelligence, been around for more than 70 years. As you can see there, the timeline on the sides. If you go a little bit further in, machine learning, which has been around from the beginning but got popularized in the 90s, works on this pattern, but in a slightly different, more large-scale approach. So, for example, what it does, it's ingest a lot of data, large amounts of data, which then pushes into the AI system, which comprises of advanced statistical models, mathematical algorithms, and then makes a prediction. So it follows this pattern. Then in about 2010s, about 15 years ago, deep learning, which is part of machine learning, got popularized thanks to advances in science and engineering. And that also uses a similar approach. So again, the pattern is to learn, to analyze, to predict, but this time around it's just even more data, large amounts of data. Then it passes on to what we call artificial neural network, or if you like, a neural network, which is basically a mathematical approximation of how the neurons work in our brain. It's a mathematical approximation. It's not that. If you heard about it, they're wrong. And then what it does also a prediction. So it gives you a prediction. What was the interesting breakthrough with the deep learning is that not only the massive scale of how you can generate those, but also the advances in terms of computer vision, computer audio, hence the things you probably have seen that can be generated by using deep learning technologies. And then about 3 years ago, at least the term was coined 2-3 years ago, it's been around for a little longer, we have generative AI, which again follows the same pattern, but now there is even more scale. So basically, again, it ingests data. And in fact, when I'm talking about data, I'm talking the entire public internet data, right? So the large language models you have out there, they literally have sucked the entire internet in, petabytes of data. So ingest all this data, then it goes through a similar pattern of artificial neural networks, more advanced in terms of styling what they're capable of doing, and mathematical algorithms on top of statistical techniques to create a prediction. But this time around, not only they are good in finding patterns in data and analyzing patterns, but also create new patterns, right? That means allows them to generate content in the way that humans typically would do. That's why it's called generative AI. And there's some advances. It's also very good of computer vision, imaging, audio, hence why you see this term possibly come around multimodal systems, which they can do beyond text. So what you might want to take from this slide here is that Gen AI is not new. If you heard come across it about a year ago, just be reminded it's been around for 70 years, going strong. It's going to go even stronger. Right. Next one. So let's listen then to what the market is telling us, how business leaders are reacting to it. Well, the message is very clear. Business leaders want to make generative AI a priority. However, what we see here, about 3/4 of them they really believe that generative AI will have a largest impact of any other emerging technology, More than 80%, they expect Gen AI to be used to support new business models, and that also comes with the inner mechanics of generative AI because it generates something new. And more than half, they expect that generative AI will support data and BI, business analytics functions in organizations, which is already happening. On the other hand, what I really want you to pay attention is on the other side of the picture, on the right side, which is what are the challenges. So the most interesting one, at least for me, is that even though maybe it's early days, only 5% of companies out there report they have something in production. So there's a lot of proof of concepts, a lot of MVPs, minimum viable products, a lot of pilots, but not many systems in production. And we will tell you exactly why this is happening and how you can mitigate that and scale it. Also, what we also see that people are concerned about data and ethics, almost 3/4 of them. They wanted to make a top corporate priority, and data have a very close resemblance to generative AI. And then nearly 1/3 of them, they're concerned about data quality, because these systems primarily are systems that data comes in, data comes out. If data is of bad quality when you come in, you can't expect the outcome to be the best possible. So this is also reflected to the discussions we have with corporations and businesses across the globe, that they are, on one hand, convinced that it's obvious there is a potential in generative AI, but it's not obvious where to start. So how do you start with generative AI? When it comes to use cases, how are you going to apply it? Which use cases are you going to use? You have your own data, how to best use your own data to make the most out of generative AI. Also, in terms of skills, do you need people with different skills, or is the existing personnel good enough? How are you going to upskill them? Risk is something that people are concerned. How do you minimize risk? How do you make sure that when they go finally in production, quoting that 5%, how do they maintain the operational efficiency over time? And of course, not really the last one is how do you do it in a responsible manner, that you are compliant and ethically correct. So to do that, you need a strategy, not any kind of strategy, and AI strategy in particular, a winning one. So what we see from the market and our experience is that a winning AI strategy have to have this kind of 4 core areas. One is to provide a scalable AI experience for the people that are going to use AI. Whether it will be your power users, whether it will be your data scientists, your machine learning engineers, your line of business people, whether it will be your own customers, it has to be an experience that allows them to get the most out of the AI in innovative ways. The second one is to get the most out of your data. Data is really the powerhouse of modern enterprises. So you can't expect a system as advanced as Gen AI to get the most out of it without really looking after your data and making sure they're in the right shape and form. The third pillar we're looking at is an AI strategy should really looking into delivering these AI insights and intelligence to pretty much anywhere. Whether it's from a desk side to client side to server side, you need to be able to deliver them anywhere. Therefore, the strategy should go from planning, from consulting and planning, all the way to scaling and execution. And last but definitely not least, a winning AI strategy should also look into protection. Protection of your key assets. And these are practically your data, right? Because any loss in terms of your data will have an IP implications, will also have commercial implications. So this underpins the value proposition of Dell in this space, which we kind of dub it in one single phrase to remember, which is bring AI to your data versus other solutions out there which require you to ship your data to somebody else's AI to get back a service. Now, we believe this is going to have a much bigger impact for the following 3 reasons. One is going to be simplified. So using our expertise as a technology company with a lot of history and accolades in this space, we can help you go from possible to proven faster by having AI attached to your data. The second one is tailored. If you reverse it, you go the other route, you don't have much customizability. Whereas with a tailored solution, bringing AI to your data, you can create better outcomes that matter for you. And the third one is trusted. You are in full control of your data, you are in full control of the outcomes versus the other solutions which you're possibly going to get that, but there is no guarantees. So how we operationalize this, how to make it happen? Well, we have an approach which we call the 4-stage approach. Strategize, implement, adopt, and scale. Each of these, they have a specific outcome attached to it. So strategize, the outcome is a roadmap. We start by helping you and getting a concessional agreement of what's going to be your roadmap for generative AI by identifying the use cases that matter most to you. The second step is implement. The outcome there is to have a platform and data ready. So by that, we mean that you need to prepare your data, making sure they're in the right shape and form to be consumed by generative AI. and then having a platform as a full stack solution which will enable you to have the Gen AI capability on top of it. The third stage, adopt, is basically where you bring your use cases to life. That's the outcome. And that's where you have identified the use case from strategize, you have implemented the platform, adopt is basically put into production. And then the last step, scale, is basically being able to expand and extend your capabilities. And from a Dell professional service perspective, we can help you from anything with regards to deployment all the way to training and also residency services for those hard-to-find skill sets in terms of, let's say, data science and machine learning operations. One of the things we do, and a lot of other companies do, is, you probably heard it a lot of times, the readiness assessment. So how ready are you for Gen AI or AI in general? But we do it in a slightly different way. We do it very thorough, very scientifically, very engineering-wise. So what we do is we have this kind of 6 pillars there, the 6 dimensions, and each of them collaboratively work with you, our customers, to understand, for example, on the strategy pillar, how well is articulated your AI strategy? Do you have the use cases? How do you prioritize them? How do you score them? How do you put them together? Do you have a plan of when this will be out there? What will be the solution that will be attached to them? So managing that strategy is very important as a first dimension. The second one we're looking at is the data. And then in the data, we do a lot of work with you to help you find, also help you manage, understand, maybe repurposing the existing data you have to make the most out of your generative AI models. Because remember what I said earlier, garbage in, garbage out. So you want to make sure you have the right data at the right time in place. And obviously, very importantly, protect your data. Then the next dimension is with regards to the AI models. Now, when it comes to AI models, there is a lot of them out there. So the Hugging Face, we probably have heard it from the media, is the world's largest repo of generative AI and AI models that Dell is very proud of collaborating with. They have more than 360,000 models there, right? And there are different types of models, from publicly hosted closed models all the way to open source models you can take and modify. So in that phase, we really help you understand how you can select the right model, how you're going to train them, fine-tune them, customize them with the help of Dell in order to provide value and achieve your outcomes. Then the other dimension is platform. So we'll help you to choose the right platform to make all that happen. And that is typically what you would say, infrastructure, compute, networking environments. What is the right sizing of your AI investment in terms of platform? And then the other two are very important because you shouldn't be kind of hindsight by the fact it's just technology. Generative AI, due to its nature of being transformative, it's something which will affect your organizational lines. Not only in terms of the production of Gen AI, also in terms of consumption, right? You can't just have, let's say, a customer service agent with a very interesting Gen AI chatbot and expect them to interact with it in a way that they would in previous generations of AI and other technology. It's going to be a different experience. So we'll help you understand what is the organizational impact, what is the cultural impact, and what is the impact on workflows, which also goes into adoption. And in adoption, we'll help you understand, once it goes in production, how do you keep it running? How do you maintain that level of efficiency you signed for at the strategy level? So as an example here of what we do as an outcome, let's say, of the first phase strategize, you get a one-shot view, not 60 pages reports you get from other vendors. So one shot is basically something which you have on your wall, and it guides you and directs you the whole transformation strategy. So from up here, you have your transformation context, what you want to do, why you want to transform, what is the use cases. Again, these are the pillars, and these are the metrics. Apologies, not very readable. Then the issues in the standard red, amber, green, so you're kind of prioritizing. I'm going to go into a little bit more details of how we calculate those. What is your vision, what you want to be today? Remember the slide, you want to be a leader. And then we have the kind of patented sort of methodology. Dell will call it as is versus to be, or if you like, current state, future state. So what's your current state, where you are now, and where you want to be? And I'm not going to step one more time. But here you can see the quantum with the use cases which you want to prioritize. And then what's your guiding principles, because this journey is going to be a journey. It's not going to be a one-day exercise. And then what is the benefits in terms of your business value? And in the end, you do get a roadmap. A roadmap is exactly that. It has milestones, deadlines, so you can follow along and track your progress. So this is one of the sample of the what you get from the first phase. Now, why is it important to have these things? So I think, typically, what we've seen is that people come with lots and lots of interesting ideas, and that's absolutely fantastic. But ideas that really make an impact are those that have an end journey, and there is an return on investment, right? Everybody can come with a cool idea what they can do with Gen AI, but put it in production, remember the 5% figure I told you earlier, is not easy. So as you can see here, typically, there is a lot of use cases we see across different areas when we talk to customers from, let's say, in the business strategy, how you can do predictive and adaptive environmental safety screening, which is kind of very attached to sustainability and CO2 targets these days. Or in production, maybe in the medical imaging, how you're going to do diagnostics and personalized medicines. Or maybe in manufacturing, you might be looking into predictive maintenance for fleets and equipment if you're in this kind of business. In marketing and sales, you might want to do Gen AI to improve your SEO strategy, which already some use cases emerging in the market, and many more. So typically, you'll be facing this situation, you have many, many use cases, and you try to understand how do I pick the right one. So that's where we can help you as Dell to go along this journey. We have a few tricks in our sleeves, as you could expect. So one of them is we'll help you prioritize them by using the standard typical sort of two-dimensional plots you might have seen. But we'll go a little bit deeper into that because these are really driven by a lot of models, let's say, which are customizable. So on one hand, you have the business value. So what you do is you take the use case, and with the help of Dell Professional Services, you try to identify and score the use case against the business value criteria. So this is maybe the standard BCF, better, cheaper, faster, and these are all quantifiable. So cheaper is very much econometrics and cost related, so there's a lot of data you can grab from your ERP to understand whether a use case is good or not. Faster, again, has to do mostly with processes, so you have things like value stream mapping we do, which will help you understand how you get the processes better. And then better is, again, could be based on maybe customer experience. You have, again, data to support that, like NPS scoring. More is a bit of a wild card we introduced because it allows you to focus on your business strategy. So more, for example, could be more revenue, or could be more units sold, or could be more customers going through the store. So whatever is aligned to your business strategy can be attached here. The nice thing about this business value criteria and the scoring is that they're based on data. So of course, this is collaboratively done with the customer. We allow the insights, but primarily we really insist on having the business value criteria and the feasibility informed by data, because that's where you avoid the situation you saw in the previous slides with 200 use cases and nobody knows where to start. Then on the other side, you have the feasibility criteria. So these are, if you recall from the previous slides, the dimensions we talked before with your readiness assessment. So already you have that in place. So we know what is your state of your data. We'll have an idea what is the AI models you want to use, what is the process you have to use, people and platform. And then the nice thing is that supported by tools, which we don't have the time to expand now, these are all then plotted in this two-dimensional plot. And the nice thing is you can actually cluster them, because one of the things we also see organizations doing as a kind of a mistake is that they focus on one use case, whereas in fact, this use case might be very relevant to another use case in a similar area. So you cluster them together, that means you try a lot of them at once, right? So that is the prioritization of use cases. Another thing you need to consider is workloads. Now, I don't fully understand the composition of the audience, but let's say if you are too technical, the workloads is basically where the AI compute and infra will be, mostly the compute. And there is nothing really innovative with this kind of workloads and fancy interaction here. You always have this kind of data center, private cloud, public hosted cloud. But generative AI brings a different kind of animal, let's say, to the equation. So first, it has to do with secure access. So if you are very concerned about who's going to access your data, who's going to access the compute once you have done your Gen AI journey, then maybe you will be more inclined to go towards a private cloud sort of data center solution. Not that they don't offer guarantees on that side of the spectrum, but you have certain things which cannot guarantee at this point in time. Right? I'm happy to go over it in more details in the break. Then another factor you need to consider is whether it's going to be general purpose or kind of what's the breadth of the use case. If it's the general purpose use case, maybe towards the public cloud hosted models will be a better option because, as I said earlier, they've been trained on the entire internet. So the training data they have is not exactly of that magnitude you're going to have over here. So maybe it's a very general purpose use case, maybe it would be better off that way. Another one has to do with the three things: accuracy, control, and customization. So accuracy is always a bit of a debate in AI because these systems are by nature non-deterministic, right? But when it comes to control and customization, you really want to make sure you have full control not only of the compute, what comes out of the Gen AI, but also of your data. So in that case, again, depending on your situation, where your environment or images are, we're going to help you understand whether it's going to be better towards that way or that way. Then you have the faster time to value. And that simply means that if you want to do quick experimentation, then the publicly hosted large language models are possibly a good option there. However, if you're interested in time to value that is more long-lasting and more customizable, maybe a solution towards that space would be better. Very important for generative AI is cost. A lot of people get this wrong because, yes, when it comes to cloud, and we've been in this space for a long time, we know almost 15, 20 years, there's always a very well understood, let's say, cloudonomics, or if you like, how you're going to use your workloads and what it's going to be costing. All the things about, if you're technical, the reserve instances, spot instances, and all this kind of. So we understand that very well. And the systems, the GenAI systems that are based on these public host offerings, they follow the same pattern. However, they introduce another element, which is tokens and tokenomics. So with generative AI, every time you ask something, like finishing set up your TV, every time you ask something, you pay money. I know it's only a few cents, but you pay. So tokens is basically you take words, you break them down in tokens, and you ask a question, the tokens, you pay some money. Every time you get back an answer, you also pay some money. Now, we're talking about massive scale here. So tokenomics, if you've seen the price over the past year and a half that these things are available, they're always kind of trending downwards, let's say. And there's also a new business model coming through. But there is a lot of more things to consider. In terms of the TCO, total cost of ownership, a generative AI solution has a lot more components. Don't forget about data, for example. In that side of the wall, you might need to shift data from one part to the other. That also incurs a cost. Or if you are in the business of translation, we live in a global world, and let's say you want to use generative AI to produce Japanese or Chinese or Russian, that's another cost. It's not the same as the original question in English. So cost, we see at this point in time really going towards this side of the wall because you have full control and understanding of the budget and the budget forecasting. And then the last one has to do with residency, in particular data residency. Because there's a lot of scrutiny from the regulators for good reasons and compliance, we think that this is better off on this side of the wall because you understand exactly where your data is, and also in terms of technicalities, you want your compute to be close to your data, right? Rather than shifting your data over there and having the compute. So data residency, from compliance and also performance reasons, is maybe better off on this side of the world. And by the way, this is not just telling you this or the other. There are options. It's just to light you up that there is a lot of things to consider with regards to generative AI workload placements. A little bit more technical, but it's easy to consume. Another thing with generative AI is the deployment patterns. So Gen AI is based on large language models. You have the acronyms LLMs. LLMs are based on this kind of innovative architecture, the transformer architecture. And most of the models that are on this side of the picture are exactly that. The acronym GPT, if you probably already used GPT, stands for a general pre-trained transformer, right? So these models have been trained on lots and lots of data. They are very generic. They are pre-trained, so that's good. You know, the starting point is there, and very good for inferencing, which is basically the initial stage where you can ask the queries and get back the answers. So this is one deployment pattern. You either use a closed one, as in publicly hosted by the closed model, or you can download an open source one and host it in your environment. The second stage is what you call the model augmentation. So that's where you have things like a retrieval augmented generation, which is basically the same pre-trained model, but this time you enhance the output by injecting your own documents to the system. Obviously in an environment that you actually take control of that process. And that gives you a little bit more relevant questions and more relevant outcomes to maybe a generic use case here. Then the other two deployment patterns are a little bit more, let's say, heavy lifting, but we think eventually the market will move there. One is what is called the fine-tuning. So not only you have the augmentation of the model by using your own data, but you also take the model and you fine-tune it, which means, you know, good old-fashioned AI we've been doing for years. You use supervised and unsupervised machine learning, reinforcement learning, and basically what you do, you fine-tune it to the specific needs of your organization. But again, you start from somewhere here. And at the very end, you have the accolade of all these kind of patterns, which is basically model training. Just to give you an idea, the output of that model training is basically these generative models here, right? So the OpenAIs of this world, et cetera, they started from there a few years back, and now they have the model here. Research tells us very few organizations will be in this space because other than the large technology vendors, which they bring them into this space and they make money out of it, it's mostly maybe big pharmas or energy or telco companies. However, what I also wanted to point out is that in this space here, in terms of skill set, you primarily need engineers or even line of business experts. You don't need specialists. Whereas if you go towards there, that's where you need the help of specialists like data scientists, machine learning engineers, MLOps engineers. And also it goes without saying that here is kind of easy to use, and as you move forward, there is increased effort, cost, and customization. Okay, so we've seen the roadmap. We've seen how you kind of identify, how you prioritize use cases. We also talked a little bit about concerns with regards to workloads and the patterns of generative AI. So how do you put them all together in order to right-size your investment and you start? So you start by your goal. So what's exactly you want to achieve using our proven approach with regards to the strategizing and the defining use cases. So it could be in the business and operations area, could be product R&D, whatever the area that might be, and you identify the KPI and the objective you want to hit. Then the next step is to identify a use case. And again, this is kind of a pattern of use cases. Could be a digital support assistant, could be a code generation, could be designing and creating synthetic data, could be automating document workflows. Your next step then is that to identify what is the right generative AI or Gen AI deployment pattern, whether you're going to start from the very beginning, kind of a pre-trained model, all the way to augmenting the model, fine-tune the model, and model training. And then once you have all these things in place, you have a very good view and informed decision to understand how you're going to do your investment, your right-size investment. And in terms of Dell, we can meet you all the way along the journey, from the very kind of humble sort of style laptop with a GPU to try to do a few things, all the way to a heavy-duty, market-leading, state-of-the-art XC series, which allows you to do billions of queries every month, and they work effortlessly. So along the way, we offer you these solutions with the use of professional services for consulting, advisory, and also for residency services for specialist skills we talked about, like data scientists, machine learning engineers, and MLOps. So why Dell? Okay, we have a few accolades. We have been named as one of the best management consulting firms out there, with areas such as data analytics, big data, digital transformation, IT strategy, IT implementation. Very important, since we're talking about Gen AI here today, we are the only OEM in the market that has very close collaborations with all major chipset makers, that is basically the GPU makers for those not accustomed, NVIDIA, AMD, Intel, and very importantly, with the major software players in this space. Meta, if you don't quite know the space, they are the makers of the Llama models. Llama models is the most popular open source model out there. Llama 2, Llama 3 is about to come out, and Hugging Face, I think I already mentioned it, the world's largest repo of machine learning models. We have close collaborations with them, they support us, and they have validated their software with Dell infrastructure. So Dell provides you this deep expertise to help you go along the journey, and I think I'm going to leave it with a picture over here that will help you move faster and drive more holistic business outcomes. That's pretty much summarized what I said today, but taking a bit of a brief. Okay. Thank you.